Stands the name of Peseta Lotu-Iiga.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance. What progress has the government made in building a more competitive economy and getting on top of New Zealand's long-standing reliance on foreign debt?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, substantial progress. Having inherited an economy in recession, we now have moderate growth. Having inherited forecasts of permanent deficits and ever-increasing government debt, we now have a path back to surplus and to debt repayment. Having inherited current account deficits at record levels of 8% of GDP, these have now halved. Having inherited first mortgage rates of over 10%, these are now 6%. And we inherited a situation where households were spending $1.10 for every dollar that they earned. And in the next few months, we will finally have positive savings in households for the first time in a decade.
Peseta Lotu-Iiga.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. How have these improvements been reflected in New Zealand's net international investment position?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, our net international investment position is an important measure, in fact probably the most important measure of our liabilities to the rest of the world. We inherited net international liabilities of 85% of GDP, with forecasts of them increasing to 100%. In fact, today, net international liabilities have reduced to 70% of GDP. This is a significant improvement, but we remain a highly indebted country and we must continue to make further improvements. It's now obvious that global markets have no appetite for debt, and irresponsible policies involving more borrowing would make our foreign debt position much worse.
Peseta Lotu-Iiga.
Further question to the Minister. Why is it important to build a competitive economy based on savings and productive investment rather than government borrowing and spending that got out of control between 1999 and 2008?
Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Speaker, that question is clearly out of order. It contains an unauthenticated alleged fact, which is clearly wrong, given the fact that government debt went down.
Order. The member was doing perfectly fine to the last point. He got into debating. What I'm going to do is ask Peseta Lotu-Iiga to repeat his question without the claimed or the opinion in it, because the Honourable Trevor Mallard is correct. It's not consistent with standing orders and it's inappropriate with a question to the member's own minister. Peseta Lotu-Iiga.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Why is it important to build a competitive economy based on savings and productive investment rather than government borrowing and spending that that was out of order in the last 10 years?
Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Speaker, while government debt has got out of order in the last 3 years, sir...
Order. The member's now debating the issue. Order. What I'd ask the member to do is please repeat his question without the opinion at the end of it. The question is perfectly understandable without the bit at the end that's causing the problem. And if the member doubts whether he is entitled to insert opinions into the question, he should check Standing Order 371. Peseta Lotu-Iiga.
Why is it important to build a competitive economy based on savings and productive investments?
The Honourable Bill English.
Speaker, because jobs and incomes that were based on excessive household borrowing and excessive government spending up to 2008 were not sustainable. If we want sustainable new jobs and higher incomes, we need to earn a living by selling more to the rest of the world. That is why the government has changed the tax system to encourage saving and discourage consumption and property speculation. That's why we have plans in place to stop government borrowing rising and start paying off debt and get the government's books back into surplus over the next 3 years. And in the face of a global recession and a substantial earthquake in Canterbury, that's not a bad achievement.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
To the Minister, if the government is really in a stronger position now than it was 3 years ago, as he claims, why does the Minister think it took until now for the ratings agencies to downgrade its credit rating? Could it be due to 3 years of zero growth, burgeoning debt and muddling through?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, no. The reasons The reasons for the change in credit ratings, I think, have been discussed at some length. One is the product of a long-term build-up in New Zealand's foreign liabilities, particularly under the stewardship of that government in the mid-2000s. And secondly, the growing sense of crisis in world financial markets, which means that every country with high levels of debt is under the microscope.
Peseta Lotu-Iiga.
How do the current government's policies contrast with New Zealand's economic direction before the 2008 election?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, the government's policies are focused on a competitive economy that can deliver sustainable new jobs and sustainable higher incomes. We've had to change the direction from growth that was based on excessive borrowing and high levels of government spending to growth that is based on earning a living from the rest of the world. And we're trying to do that at a time when the global economy is subject to a lot of uncertainty and volatility. And I'd have to say New Zealanders have shown a great deal of resilience, and I, for one, am proud of what they've achieved in the face of adversity.
Question number 2, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.